The water lapped in and out on the lakeshore of her heavy heart. As the breeze blew away one tear, another took its place, creating the constant flow of wet salt leading to the crest of her lips. Her almond-shaped eyes wrinkled as her soul's pain showed itself, hands tightening, jaw clenching, chest vibrating. She didn't care that her shoes were caked in mud, or her nail polish was chipped. She was all consumed with her moment on the shore, and her heart knew she never wanted to feel this way again. As she began to vow to herself that this would never happen again, a voice whispered, "This is the price of living. If you hurt, it means you care. And if you never care, how can you ever really enjoy living?" Seated on the rocks of the shore, the salty air kissed his sea-worn skin. The whites in his beard matched the foam of the waves as they rolled in and out with his thoughts. The riptide of his mind, held in by the crow's feet that framed his face, replayed his history, his life of loss, grief, regret, love, joy. A humble tear rolled down his cheek to the sand covering his toes, inhaling the promise of tomorrow and all the tomorrows to come. His smile bid adieu to the low tide of the moment as he and his footprints were absorbed back into the white, thick blanket of fog. Painted colors on the horizon guided her back to the highway. A familiar song played on the radio as she tucked her hair behind her ear and began to sing. It reminded her of a road trip she once took through the desert and being carefree on the open road of life. Belting out over the sound of the cracked window, her hands pounded the steering wheel to the beat. Carefree as she ever was, she caught the smell of nature fading as she entered the clamor of the city night. After glazing her way through neon lights, she parked. Stepping out, she noticed a puddle greeting her like a welcome mat. The water washed away the mud in an instant. She shook the water off before sliding across the cabin over the passenger seat. Her dress snagged on the gear shift, making her exit less than graceful. The contents of her purse spilled across the sidewalk. She shoved them back into their home, missing a lip gloss and a few coins as she felt that first raindrop. Of course it's raining, she thought. Sopping wet, she walked to the front door. The reflection of her face in the mirror said it all. He wiped the sleep crumbs from his eyes as his heavy feet shuffled down the quiet street. The birds sang their usual songs, ushering him to his first cup of coffee, like sirens on rocky shores. With a startling honk of a car, he adjusted his step, directing his eyes downward for only but a moment. A barely distinguishable coin looked up at him. As he knelt and reached for it, he was transported to simpler times. A time when him and his brother would spend their mornings lining up countless coins on the train tracks. They'd wait all day for them to be flattened, and once they were, became treasures from a mystical time. A grin peeked through his beard as his fingers slid over the face on the coin, recognizing the superstition of discovering a coin heads up. The luck was in the memory. The luck was in his smile. The luck was in his heart as it glided into his pocket and jangled with each stride down the street and into the new day. Head on the pillow, she debated whether to rise or not. Would this day be any different than the others? Was it worth trying? She was tired and worn out like her favorite leather belt. The time read 8 a.m., and she knew there wasn't really any question. She wasn't one to really give up on life. As the sheets fell to the gray wooden floor, her bare feet creaked across the room, reflecting an image she didn't really feel great about. She submerged her face into cupped hands full of cold water. As droplets dripped from her lips, her eyes shifted from defeat to determination. She would not let the weight of her yesterdays weigh down her today or her tomorrows. She slammed the door and strutted down the hallway like Athena, goddess of war, leading the charge into battle. He inspected the black-framed mirror as he tightened his suit tie. He hadn't dressed up since the funeral, and that had been years. He had lost the battle within of whether he would come up with another excuse to go or not. It had been so long, yet his heart still felt heavy anytime he cracked that door inside of himself. He loved her with everything he had. He never wanted to betray that love, but he also knew she wouldn't want him to be a ghost. She would tell him to go and share all the love he had to give with one who deserved it. She would remind him of how kind he was and what a caring listener he was. Hearing her voice in his head, he opened the door to the party with a smile. He wasn't there to meet anyone new, but he also wasn't going to shy away anymore either. He had been living in dread and grief for long enough. The torture had become exhausting, and he wanted to relieve himself of it without just having to drink it away in the darkness of solitude. It had been a long day, and this party was the last place she wanted to be, but she owned her choice with her heels and black dress that rarely left the closet. She'd make her rounds, have a few cocktails, and be in her pajamas by 9, she told herself. Waiting at the bar, a hand brushed up against hers and instantly recoiled. It was owned by a man with a nice suit and a half-assed smile. She wondered if her mystique had left her, and his forced smile proved how broken she was. That was it. She had lost her magical quality of intriguing others. Not that she had really wanted to intrigue anyone. She just wanted to be left alone. As she continued to wait, out of the corner of her eye, she caught his side gaze. Maybe not, she thought. The bartender addressed him, and he refused, commenting, "The lady has been waiting longer." They both opened up their bodies to one another and began to chat with enthusiastic grins. The air about them proved that they had both been closed off until this moment, and it had nothing to do with anyone but themselves. Her electricity was still there, her fire, her brilliance. How could she have doubted herself for a moment? He complimented her thoughts and ideas. She knew she could look good, but didn't want that type of recognition. She wanted to be seen, and for the first time in a long time, past 11, at that mahogany bar, she was. The wet of the morning mist couldn't wash away his memories of last night. He had passed through a portal of possibilities at that mahogany bar. She was a painting he was lucky enough to view, a work of art he didn't know still existed. The cool of the ocean breeze didn't faze him, as his heart was still warm from her smile. Her eyes, her ideas entranced him, as her laughter still circled him, bringing him warmth. He was proud of himself for going, and even more proud of having the courage to relax around her, free of guilt. He didn't know where he would go from here. Could it get better than that moment? Was that enough? Did he know how to romance a person anymore? Had he forgotten? Had she enjoyed his company as much as he did hers? Would she even agree to see him again? His thumb slid over the old coin as he reached into his pocket for his phone. After a few rings, her electricity zapped him, ignited him, resurrected and erased all doubt. All with that simple hello. Her soft, wet lips pressed against his, palms spreading across his chest. He rolled her onto her back as their tongues said good morning. She guided his head to lie upon her breasts. Morning rays slid between the curtains. They both lay there, secretly wondering if they had any more left in them, or had the past 10 hours been enough for now. She wondered if this was really possible, feeling this safe and satisfied, or would he break her heart eventually? She remembered the whisper in the wind on the lakeshore. This was really living. With a sigh, he did his best to throw away his fears, that her seductive taste was honest, and this wasn't all too soon. But the last 3 weeks had made him feel whole once again. She was it, who he had been waiting for. "Do you have some change?" she said. "Going to grab us coffee downstairs." "In the bowl by the door," he replied. Her clear-coat nails dipped into the change bowl, her father's lucky coin. How did it get there? She hadn't seen it in months, maybe longer, well before she ever met him. She couldn't place where she had lost it, it just wasn't there one day. "Found it on the street. It's an old one," he said. "It was my father's," she uttered. "Yours?" "Yes. You found this on the street?" "One morning, on the way to coffee." A lone tear slid to her lips. His thumb wiped it away as he whispered with kind eyes, "How serendipitous."